Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the acclaimed podumentary series, Take It or Leave It, Dr. Barbara Tabor Speaks, the show where we break down the socio-political events, ideas, and individuals shaping our world. This is the show where there is no such thing as a shortage of material, thanks to these crazy times that we're living in. And today, we're going to delve into the political landscape of summer 2024, a season full of unexpected twists and key developments as we head toward a crucial presidential election, perhaps the most crucial in American history. And I know that everybody says that every time these days, but this one really is. And it's one that's going to shape the world going forward. And it's been an intense few months, to say the least, unprecedented in many ways, with everything from a bad debate to a candidate swap, with enough craziness in between to keep us busy for 10 lifetimes. And of course, our host, Dr. Barbara Tabor, is on the line today to offer her sharp insights and her spot-on predictions. And as always, she'll unpack what needs unpacking and dive into how recent events and the key players are shaping the election, along with what we might see in the coming months. From the campaign trail to the latest political maneuvers, we'll walk through the defining moments of the summer that will be discussed, debated, and studied for hundreds of years to come. Without further ado, I give you the woman of the hour, Dr. Barbara Tabor. Hello, Dr. Tabor. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just great.
Excellent. Well, this is a big one. Let's rewind. Let's rewind to late June, that ill-fated presidential debate between Biden and Trump. After Biden's poor performance in that debate, public opinion shifted, and even Democrats and the media began to change their stance. What caused this shift, and when does media support become political endorsement, given existing concerns about Biden's health, which were downplayed but highlighted in special counsel Robert Hur's report, where he referred to Biden as, quote, a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory? Were these concerns justified after the debate, and has this further eroded trust in politicians and the media?
Well, in the first place, Biden should never have pushed that debate. He had done this European blitzkrieg through various countries right before the debate. And they said he had a cold and he was having issues. I think he had COVID at that point. It wasn't until after the debate that they said that he tested positive for COVID. But I truly think he had that all along. Having had a mild case of COVID, I know how I felt, and that was a mild case. Brain fog, coughing, just miserable. But I really think that was one of the reasons that he was having a problem. Robert Hur's report was in very poor taste. I don't remember happens to be the favorite comment of any politician when they're dealing with a special counsel. Because if you don't remember, then they can't bring that up later and say you should have been subpoenaed or given, tried or impeached or brought up for impeachment and so forth. But I think he slanted the opinions to a point that people were not expecting Biden to do well at all.
Yeah.
He was a feeble-minded old man. Well, when he gave the State of the Union, he was far from feeble-minded. After that debate, people who are giving money, big donors, not the nickel and dimers like me, but people who were basically giving millions of dollars in different ways to stay within the election contribution laws. Just basically said, I'm not going to support this because he can't win. Polling numbers were miserable based on the debate and based on some of the rallies that he had. And it just got to be where he had these folks, these donors and supporters were going, well, you got to drop out. And we got to find somebody to take your place. And amazingly, it was not Kamala Harris that they were looking to. Although, that was a big choice.
Following the assassination attempt on Donald Trump at that fateful rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, do you believe that extreme political rhetoric from both sides contributed to the environment that led to this incident? Additionally, why do you think there are so many unanswered questions about the attempt, and is there a reason for the lack of clear information?
The FBI and the Secret Service come up with detailed information. First off, I don't have a clue why the feds and the locals did not have a common channel, radio channel, that they were using to communicate. But they did not. And all the mass casualties I've ever worked as a paramedic, you have radio contact with every group that's there doing the work at a mass casualty. They have found information from this young man's computers and papers and so forth that showed that he didn't care which candidate he got. He was searching both candidates and where they were holding rallies. He was just going to make a name for himself. And lucky for Trump, he turned his head just as the shot was fired, and it just clipped his ear. And he's also lucky the kid was a lousy shot.
After narrowly escaping death, Trump was riding high with another surge in the polls, mid-July. Some favorable legal outcomes seemed to coincide as well. There was a successful RNC, and all signs pointed to a landslide victory in November. But then, seemingly overnight, everything changed. What happened?
He did get his bump from the RNC, but he didn't keep it because Biden put country over self, stepped down, and then endorsed Kamala Harris. And that kind of put a few holes in Trump's sails. So that kind of blindsided Trump because he doesn't know how to handle her. First off, it's her.
Right.
He does not handle strong women at all. This one is a strong woman. He doesn't know how to deal with her on an intellectual level. The prosecutor versus the felon. All he can come up with is denigration, deflection, and personal attacks, but nothing on the issues, because every time he comes up with an issue, she turns around and says, oh, but this is what you did that caused this. She is not a shrinking violet, and she has her data.
Kamala Harris recently went from being unpopular to extremely popular, with the press dubbing it the Kamala honeymoon. Can this momentum carry her through to November? Meanwhile, the Republican ticket seems to be losing steam.
First off, as far as the Republicans losing steam, it goes back to what I said before. They can't come back at her on these things. They try it. I've seen some horrible memes and horrible posts on X and Truth Social ones that happen to crop up other places because I won't even go on that one. And people are tired of that. They don't like the schoolyard bully anymore. If you look at Kamala Harris and Kim Waltz, and then you look at J.D. Vance and you look at Trump, who's smiling? Who's laughing? Who's having a good time doing what they're doing? There is joy, and there has not been joy in politics in a long time. That is pushing her. Also, she has done things like walk picket lines. She doesn't have a problem taking what's thrown at her from the right and saying, oh, no, you didn't. Because when they start going, you were the border czar and you did nothing. Well, the administration, with her sitting in on some of these meetings, basically went to the far right and said, hey, come over here and let's make a border ruling, a border law that works, that makes you happy, that kind of makes us happy, and we're going to work across the aisle. Right. The Senate did it with the most far-right senator authoring the bill. And that man sat at the State of the Union agreeing with everything Biden said about the bill. But what happened? A person on the far right called up his minions and said, kill the bill, because I'm going to run on it when I run for president against Biden. Well, now it's against Harris. Yeah. Well, guess what? They just turned that one back around on Mr. Trump and said, oh, wait a minute, you're the one that did this, and it never even made it to the floor of the House because it was killed in the Senate by the far-right members of the Senate, like Jim Jordan and company. You know, this is what's giving her basically wings. She's come up with a decent plan for the economy and for the middle class and the working class and the working poor. Talked about health care and what the other side wants to do as far as doing away with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Now you're talking grandma and grandpa and auntie and uncle. So people are starting to go, oh. And as much as the right decides or tries to defend against it and say, oh, this is not our platform, Project 2025 is their platform. They don't call it that, but when you start looking at what he's wanting to do, how they want to run the government, and then you go into this 920-some, 30-some odd page document, you can find, point by point, the same exact things. The fact that J.D. Vance helped write it, that half the people who authored the sections were in the previous Trump administration. Trump's name shows up multiple times. And the Heritage Foundation he's good buddies with the guy who's in charge of the Heritage Foundation and who also is a big donor to the Republican Party. Or should I say the Trump Party, because the people that are in the Republican Party that are still traditional Republicans are backing Kamala Harris. That's interesting. Yeah. So that's some of the things that are lifting her up. She's also going not only to the big cities, she's going rural. She did a rural Georgia swing. She's hitting the swing states and places where she needs to be to try and pluck the undecideds, the independents, and the people who just can't take Trump anymore. Yeah. So these are things that are causing her poll numbers to go up.
As the current vice president, Ms. Harris will inevitably be linked to Mr. Biden's record, for better or worse. Should she embrace it or distance herself from it?
Well, she was part and parcel of making most of it.
Yeah.
And so it's linked to her. But let's see. Lowest unemployment, best recovery after the pandemic, best economy globally. She cannot distance herself, and why should she? The one thing she should not be linked to, and Biden should actually not be linked to, is this fiasco of an exit from Afghanistan. Because that whole plan was set by Mr. Trump.
Some people are worried that Biden was considered unfit to run for re-election, yet he's still leading the country until 2025. Given the current state of the world, is this a valid concern?
There's not a thing wrong with that man as far as running the country. No president makes decisions all by themselves. They get the information from the different people who have the expertise in that particular field. Biden's not going to go off half-cocked and do something that would plunge the country into a deficit situation where unemployment will go sky high and the economy would tank and this would happen and that would happen. He's going to rely on the expertise of these advisors. And he's been doing it all along. He does have a stubborn streak because he really didn't want to give up. But he realized he had to because there was no path to him winning, and God forbid the other person were to win. We're still in that situation. But you can't even believe, there is no way anyone with a rudimentary understanding of how the different branches of government are supposed to work can look at the actual executive branch and say, Biden makes all the decisions. Period.